after show. We don't often do these, but when YouTube has problems, we're here. So we went to a watch along, didn't happen. In all honesty, I'm kind of happy it didn't. We'll get into Jake Paul, Gilberto Ramírez, and we're also going to cover Deontay Wilder's fight tonight as well, or this morning rather, because we'll cover it all on Thursday again a little bit, but not in as much detail as right now.
We had some technical issues yesterday, which is why we didn't go live at 4 a.m. Apologies, guys.
But I think that's a blessing, let's be honest. I mean, general consent, we're going to start straight away with Jake Paul because I think we should. He's beaten Chavez Jr. I just don't... Look, the problem is, I spent the whole week winding people up. Because I don't care about Jake Paul's fights.
Connor's good at that on TikTok. Just go over to TikTok. Connor's really good at that.
I think a lot of people, I wouldn't say I'm a boxing purist, like all the way over. But I don't love these fights, especially Jake Paul, because I've watched him again tonight, and it's the first time I've watched him in years because I kind of just can't be arsed with him generally.
Who, Jake Paul?
Oh, maybe Mike Tyson fight, actually. I forgot about that. But I don't count that. He's just so average. Eddie Hearn said it.
Do you know what it is? There's nothing wrong with being average. I need to get that clip out. That it's hilarious. At the end of the day, he's took an out of probably shape form. Chavez Jr. has taken Jake Paul to points. He's taken a 28-year-old man to points who essentially wants to emulate being a world champion.
Yeah.
How he's going to do that, I don't know. I don't think he understands how weights work because he calls out Canelo, who's a super middleweight.
Yeah.
He's called out Anthony Joshua, who's a heavyweight, and he's a cruiserweight. Called out Tyson Fury at one point, who arguably is a super heavyweight.
Gervonta Davis.
Who's a lightweight. I mean, does he know how boxing weights work?
I'm not convinced he's ever watched boxing. That genuinely might be an issue there.
I wouldn't be surprised if he calls out Anui next. Honestly,
call out Muhammad Ali.
Honestly, at this point, he might as well be calling out Katie Taylor. He just says names for fun.
If Taylor beats Serrano, he probably will.
That's going to happen.
Yeah.
No, but you're not wrong. Very average fighter. Don't really understand what he's trying to prove to everyone because essentially you fought two boxers. Like, I can't even say that. Chavez Jr. was a world champion, but retired Chavez.
Yeah.
Or doesn't box Chavez, and you fought a Golden Gloves champion who no one ever heard of.
Yeah.
Outside of that, if I'm not mistaken, they've been YouTubers in MMA. And
you got Tommy Fury, Tyson, but he lost to Tommy Fury.
Mike Tyson is 60 years old.
Yeah, so that doesn't count.
He's fought three boxers, but he's fought basically an OAP. Yeah, let's have it right. Like, he's an old person, like Mike Tyson. He'd still beat up a lot of people in the street, but he's old. He can't box. Street fighting and boxing is two different things.
Yeah.
And then obviously Chavez Jr. And I can't even remember the Golden Gloves champion he fought. I couldn't tell you his name.
Ryan Borland, but he was Golden Gloves champion in early 1990s, and he's an old guy. He's been retired. He was never a good pro. The only pro that he's fought and beat,
Tommy Fury,
semi-legitimate.
He lost against.
Well, he lost to Tommy Fury. He fought a guy called Andre August, and I genuinely think that's the first time, and maybe the last time, we'll see him in there with anyone semi-legit. And he knocked him out in round one, but I just don't. I don't. My
Have
issue
you ever
with
fought anyone in the top ranked 40?
No, of course not.
Of any, I don't know what division he fights in, but go on. What was you going to say?
My issue with him, I don't know what his goal is. Is he just trying to make a load of money? In which case, he's actually achieving his goal really well. Although tickets were reduced 70% in price to sell out last night. They did manage to sell out the arena, but they only sold it out this week, and they had to reduce the price by 70%. So their actual gate revenue is not going to be record breaking. They've kind of had to just almost give them away. The tickets were going for as low as like $10.
That's mental. For when you look at the price of ticketing in America, on average, for a standard sort of boxing bout, I think we've had a couple of Americans in the chat before talking, but some events you're upscaling a cheap tickets $150 to $200.
Yeah,
that's like the bottom barrel of the tickets. Then it goes up, and then you're talking in the thousands. So for the tickets to be available for $10 says to me that no one really gave a shit about this fight.
$10.
$10.
Is that the gimmick up?
What's that?
Is the gimmick up? Is the whole?
I don't think you. If me and you don't believe it, we never have. Yeah, I think anyone with 2 brain cells never believed the gimmick. He, in the space that he's in, what I will say about Jake Paul is you can't say he hasn't improved, because he has improved. Yeah, I'll give him that. But if you said to me like he's fighting on the YouTuber scene, fair enough. Yeah, or he's doing the fantasy matchups and just fighting exhibitions, fair enough. What he's saying to us is that he believes that he can beat some of the all-time greats in the division. But when you mention an informed, decent fighter, Jake Paul says, grab a ticket. Like grab a ticket, get in the queue. Like, realistically, he's never going to fight Anthony Joshua. He wouldn't even get in. He definitely wouldn't fight Francis Ngannou. Ngannou's somebody I believe he wouldn't fight. No. Or any of these heavyweights. I just... Or anyone for that matter, anyone that's decent, that's boxing, that's active, he's not fighting them. We've identified that. So yeah, to most people the gimmick's probably over, but I never really believed this gimmick in the first place.
No,
he's just taken up a space where he's doing what he's doing, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't. The problem is I don't want to be too harsh, because he is doing some good things to the sport, and he's getting a lot of eyes on the sport, and he's promoting women's boxing probably better than anyone else in the world.
I agree. I can agree with.
So I don't want to hate on him, but I will say, for someone that started, did he start in 2018? That's when he had his sort of the first of the like YouTube lot fights. I think was 2018. Yeah, 2018. 7 years. For me, like, I know there's guys that have been in the gym since they're 3. I'm not saying he should be like that, but I'm not also saying I want this guy. I'm not saying Jake Paul should be a world champion, which won't happen. And he really simply put, he's actually just not an athlete. We'll talk about sort of the more details of the fight in a second, but he's not that athletic. He's for 7 years of boxing, and the amount of money that he's got, so therefore he could train. He's got optimal training, optimal recovery, all the rest of it. I think he's honestly piss poor. He makes some really bad mistakes. Now, Chavez Jr. is never going to capitalize on it because he's older, and I mean, he's shot to bits. That guy shouldn't be in a ring. Mike Tyson was never going to, because Mike Tyson's now slow and 60 OAP. But we've seen, like, Mike Perry. I know he finished Mike Perry, but Mike Perry didn't have a bad performance against Jake Paul. That shouldn't happen. Nate Diaz was okay against him. Like, we're talking about fighters here who've never been in a boxing ring, and the whole MMA to boxing that's not actually a thing. I don't care if you're the best like striker of all time in MMA. You don't just come to boxing and get good at it. You need more than that. So I think someone that's trained as extensively as Jake Paul claims to, I think he's pretty rubbish at the actual fighting part. At promoting everything else, I think he's brilliant. But I don't actually think I've kind of gone fair play since maybe he knocked out Tyron Woodley. I think it was their second fight, and I think that's the last time that I've seen clips of his fights after the fight where I actually thought that was that was actually insane. Or that lived up to the moment, rather, because that was a huge knockout. Last night's fight, If you go on Most Valuable Promotions Instagram, they're telling you Jake Paul wins, unbelievable fight, unbelievable fighter, and all the rest of it. They've put a clip out captioned, one, they called him unbeatable, which is hilarious because he got beaten. But two, they put a video out of him landing a body shot, and they put like unbelievable body shot by Jake Paul, and it's a good body shot, but his chin's exposed. He's literally asking to be counted. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not calling him bad at boxing. He's better than most, but not better than most pros, if any. I think he's so average.
Yeah,
and I know people will probably talk about like the ratings and BoxRec. I mean, the belt rankings, we've already discussed this. That's for the sanction fees. They want to make as much money as they can. Jake Paul's going to make him a stupid amount of money. If you look at BoxRec, he's like the 9th best cruiserweight in America. But that's because he's beaten Mike Tyson. If you don't know how BoxRec's ranking works, it's like chess. It's like an ELO system. Your score gets lower, but if you're a legend of the sport like Mike Tyson, it's naturally still going to be quite high. And if you come back to being active, the point is he'll gain loads of points in their ranking by that and by Chavez Jr. And
do you know what's mad is when you actually look at the level of a bout. So obviously, one thing to mention with BoxRec is he's rated out of 5 for their bouts. Yeah. Now most novices will probably first fight, or how BoxRec will view it is probably 1 to 2 stars corner, right, on their first couple of fights. Yeah. Consistently, every fight Jake Paul's had is the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights weren't even rated. Then they essentially onwards, he's not really stepped up in opponents.
No.
Again, when you actually really dig deep into his record, Mike Tyson is nearly 60 years old, and big. And by the way, for somebody who wants to get in there with world champions, this is a man who asked a 60-year-old to put on 14-ounce gloves.
Yeah.
Then obviously you go on to just the record's mental. Like I don't know how we can look at it and BoxRec goes, yeah, number 9. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's just how screwed our system is. Like I actually think Dana White probably coming into boxing is not a bad thing, because I think he's running the Terence Crawford Canelo event.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes, but his model needs to happen in the boxing, because there's too many. I think there's too. Obviously, we always speak about too many governing bodies, but too many people making mad decisions. Jake Paul shouldn't be allowed to fight Mike Tyson. I mean, no board should have sanctioned that, with all due respect. Chavez Jr. again. He's you say it's a good win, but what? He's 40 again, nearly 40. Chavez.
Yeah, 39, 40. Yeah. Retired. Well, he lost Anderson Silva recently, and Silva's not a good boxer.
Join up, Sod, if you're free. Jump in, man. Thank you very much, Sod. Just click the link.
We're talking about. I think at the time when Eddie Hearn called him average, he was right, because at that point we didn't know what he was doing. He should be knocking some of these guys out. I don't think he's got any attribute that's impressive, except his promotion. And I don't think that won't work if he keeps fighting.
Let's mention for a minute, because we've dissected how shit of a boxer he is. Yeah. And let's be honest. Yeah. One thing I can't take away from him is what he's doing for female boxing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to be fair to him, the cards he's put on, unreal. I think we've got to look at it. He's signed Scotney recently as well. Ellie Scotney.
Yeah, Scotney, Baumgardner, Cameron, Serrano. Doesn't have Taylor, but obviously.
No, but he's got a stable of fighters. on the female thing, he's doing something. What he's doing is smart because, as bad as this is, I still think female boxing doesn't get the credit it deserves sometimes compared to the males. Yeah, I'm going to make that now. I've seen great female boxers. One of my favourite shows that I think I've been to was the all-women's boxing card that Ben Shalom done.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant show.
Great fighters. That was Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields headline.
Yeah. Baumgartner, Maya Comane,
Yeah.
Caroline Dubois. Debut, maybe.
Yeah. But they're like when you look at how it's actually quite bad, like because boxing is probably the only sport that I can say women on women, men on men when they're both fighting. It's not like other sports where you see a massive disparity in terms of ability, with all due respect, because some sports you see it. That's just an observation. It's not me I'm just making an observation on it. With boxing, I feel the same type of intensity and locked in watching a woman's fight as I am to a man's fight. I'm pretty sure you're the same, Connor.
Yeah.
But the sad part of it is when you look at Katie Taylor and Serrano, you're talking the biggest fight in female boxing right now, would you say?
Yeah.
What are they earning? $6 million.
Yeah. They're going to earn a new record, but it'll be, I don't know, 6-7 mil, yeah.
And then in comparison to when you think about Teofimo Lopez, on the other hand, moans about his top rank shows and only getting 2, 3, 4 mil from shows. So you look at the massive disparity in pay between female and women's boxing, and if you've got a profile built up, then the female boxers offer as much as the men.
Yeah.
So
that side of it's weird.
What do you think? What do you think he's doing? What do you think Jake Paul's trying to do with that over there?
My only thought is that even him fighting now is to build up this company. Because there's no way. I know that he's potentially an idiot if he actually thinks he'll be a world champion. And I'm not just saying that because of
I think he's
the obvious. Maybe. But I don't believe somebody can be this successful with that much delusion. I mean, to think that he could go in there and beat Zurdo, who he faced off with, and we'll talk about Zurdo in a second. But I'm assuming that this is a bit of an act, because it kind of always has been. Well, as far as I'm care, I think it has always been a bit of an act to build up most valuable promotions, who are quickly turning into one of the biggest promoters in the world.
Yeah.
Make them profitable, keep promoting fights, and then slowly step back. And by the time, almost like a robbery, by the time you realise, Jake Paul's not actually fighting with these guys anymore, suddenly most valuable promotions are one of the biggest in America. There's a massive gap in the market for anyone with enough money in America to promote, because Saudi, Riyadh season, all of these guys, they've completely taken over boxing within about 2.5, 3 years. There's UK boxing is in a really good place because we see these fights get put on. But in actual fact, what's going on is, if you look at the general weekly fights that we're getting, the quality has dropped, because all the big fights, the best ones, they go in Saudi. They occasionally do one. They'll do Wembley for AJ Dubois, or they'll do one in Vegas for Canelo. But generally speaking, they're in the Middle East, and that's absolutely fine. That's where the money is. So fair enough. But it means there's a market gap where a Jake Paul can come in and go, well, I'm going to fight on my own promotion. So he's making a shitload of money anyway, because he's going to give himself a better pay cut. And he should, like anyone would. That's the sensible thing to do. He's going to make a shitload of money from that, and his promoter's cut. And he's bringing big fights to America that aren't on a Saudi card, meaning we get better fights. I think this is just, he will step back at some point and we'll be like, oh, that's done. But in our heads, most valuable promotions will still be up there. That has to be the plan. If that's not the plan, and he actually wants to get in there with any credible, not world champion. World champion would kill him. Let's talk British level champion. If he wants to actually get in there with anyone like that, he's completely deluded. Because he makes so many mistakes. He is not a good fighter. His chin is so high. He's actually asking to be knocked out.
Yeah,
in his fight. It's ridiculous, but he does put good fights on. And what I will, I don't know if you've got any more you want to comment on Jake Paul, but I want to speak about Zurdo because we potentially got a huge fight between him
talk about
and
Zurdo.
Opetaya.
Co-main.
So, Gilberto Ramírez won. Not a massive shock. I kind of thought if Dorticos was a little bit maybe younger, he could have potentially cracked Zurdo. But Zurdo seemed pretty unfazed by the power. It sets up the Opetaya fight.
We need to see it.
We do. We don't want any funny business with Jake Paul. I don't mind them facing off and doing all the stuff for cameras and media attention, but it has to be Opetaya.
Yeah.
And it's a long day for both of them, I think. It's a tough fight. Zurdo's huge, much bigger than Opetaya. But Zurdo gets hit so much and clean as well. Billum Smith was doing it. Dorticos did do it. I don't know how much power is left in Dorticos. He's a bit older now and he's 30 fights into his career and a lot of hard fights in there. But Opetaya is more clinical in a lot of ways than Dorticos. And probably more powerful right now. So I would not be surprised if we see.
We've seen it before. The interesting setup for this fight is Jay Opetaya possesses a lot of power, or speed, and power as well.
Yeah,
Zurdo possesses power in abundance, but we've seen it before where Opetaya's come up against elite opponents and he's looked very good, but not invincible. No. Everyone thought he was this guy that was invincible. And we saw a normal Opetaya where he had to really dig deep to get that win. Yeah. I feel like this fight's probably going to be the same. Do you not agree? Because Zurdo can soak a lot up and move forward. So it has to happen. It would be carnage if they announced Jake Paul and Zurdo.
Well, I mean, they're not going to.
Can you imagine? I'd lose my head. My head would be gone.
The thing, I mean, besides the obvious, like there should be nobody that sanctions that fight anyway. But
if they do, strip it. Yeah. That's it.
At that point, boxing has to move to the one belt divisions, completely sanctioned by one sensible person. Like that's when we have to get quite extreme with it. I like having multiple belts. I don't like all the rankings. I don't like all the organizations, governing bodies, and all this shit that comes with it. But I think it's pretty cool when a fighter unifies a division. I actually think that is cooler than what they do in the UFC, is when they have all the belts. Yeah. But because of the way UFC runs it, we saw it last night. UFC absolutely stomped boxing.
It's 100%.
Not happened as much recently, but the UFC, Ilia Topuria knocking out Charles Oliveira has completely overshadowed. The first thing I saw on my phone, and I like the UFC a lot, but I'm not a massive fan. I don't interact with it that much. First thing I see is Ilia Topuria and Paddy Pimblett facing off in the octagon. Second thing is his knockout. Third thing is like Charles Oliveira saying like my apologies or something. Jake Paul is not that massive. He doesn't transcend boxing to the extent I think people do think he does. Zurdo and Opetaya makes so much sense, but will it happen? I don't know because they've been kind of back and forth. I mean, it was meant to be Opetaya, Billum Smith. Billum Smith didn't want to fight in September. You're 90-10 for Opetaya to win. That's big. How do you think the fight goes? What's your actual prediction? Well, I'm assuming 90-10. I'm assuming it's a knockout, but
it's interesting.
Yeah, I really don't know, because a big part of me is going, this fight feels like it's just should have happened about.
Would you say this has been the worst weekend of boxing as a whole? Obviously, you've got individually good fights, but in terms of events,
yeah. Nah, I don't know. There's a few.
you couldn't even watch. And I know we're going to talk about it in a minute, but if you go and watch Deontay Wilder highlights, the best
that's not
quality
great.
you can get it in on YouTube is 360.
Yeah,
They couldn't even do the footage in 1080, Connor.
Let's we'll get to Wilder in just a second. I just want to touch on Floyd Schofield first, and then we're going straight to Wilder, because Wilder's the big one. Floyd Schofield knocked out Tevin Farmer in round 1, which makes me a little bit worried about what Shakur Stevenson's going to do to Zepeda, because Zepeda went 24 hard rounds with Tevin Farmer. Mm-hmm. But round 1 knockouts, it can be a flash knockout, you never know. So Schofield, I'm kind of just bringing this up because I'm quite happy for him. He's a young fighter. He's a very talented fighter. He was going to retire or he considered it after he got injured and had to pull out of the Shakur Stevenson fight.
That would have been a shame.
And he's now come back. He's put himself in his first fight back after what must have been a pretty shit time, because everyone said he was ducking as well. He then comes back and fights Tevin Farmer, who up till last night was on. Actually, I know he'd lost to Zepeda twice, but he was actually seen as quite a good fighter. And he's knocked him out round 1. Schofield's now going to have a shot at something. I don't know what, but he's got a big fight next. There's not much to say about that. It's a great shot he lands. It's really great, but there's not much. I just wanted to bring it up as a general
thing. Easy with him. Like he's young and yeah.
I also don't think he shouldn't rush though. That's the only worry. That's the only thing with first round knockouts that you got to be careful of, is it means your actual experience with an elite fighter is minimal. Right. Yeah. Wilder. We could do this in about 3 seconds, or we could do this in a little bit more respectful way.
One summary of the fight, honest opinion. One word. Yeah, I thought that as well.
Yeah.
I have never ever seen somebody just throw just jab to try and set up the right hand. I've never seen somebody a whole fight not try and work the body, because it's mental to me. What's going on, Connor? Like, who's actually watched it? Like, I watched it on Saturday morning, and I was like, oh my God. He looked absolutely finished in the 7th round. Like, he had no energy left, zapped completely, and struggled, obviously, to pull off his punches. The issue of this fight is, I just watched him jab, try and set up a right hand, jab to the head. But the jabs were going at like a mile an hour, less than that actually.
Yeah.
So slow. But do you know what? I'm not quite sure like we were saying, if Wilder wins, he's put himself back in contention for big fights.
Yeah, I regret saying that.
I regret saying that because I feel like the win looked like a loss.
Yeah.
He didn't fight back. Henry didn't fight back, really. I think he got knocked down in that fight, I'm going to say 4 or 5 times. But they weren't like mad shots. It was like exhaustion, I'd put it down to.
Yeah, they were both. Wilder was reasonably fit, I guess. He would have done the 10 rounds or whatever. Herndon was not. I mean, for anyone that didn't see it, don't. That's the best advice I can give you on that. But the actual finish wasn't your typical Wilder finish where they're out cold. He actually couldn't finish him.
Yeah.
Wilder's best attribute, or what he's meant to be, is finishing his opponents, and he just couldn't do it. Herndon kind of just had to stop. He was getting beaten up, Herndon, but that's a guy that's been knocked out 4 times, and clean knocked out as well. Ajagba and Richard Torres knocked him out clean very early on in their careers. The fact that Wilder one of the longest reigning world champions in heavyweight history, couldn't, really just spells out retirement. Like, it's almost as bad as I think. Actually, it's definitely not. But I'm going to say it's a good clip. It's almost as bad as Jake Paul fighting Zurdo if we put Wilder in with AJ. Wilder can't jab. He doesn't feint. He's got no body work. His footwork is poor. Can't cut the ring off. And his only good thing is that he had a big right hand, and he doesn't seem to have that anymore. He genuinely doesn't seem to have.
Should we read some of the comments from our TikTok reel? Because there's quite a lot of them. It's nearly at 50,000 in terms of the views on it. By the way, somebody said give it time. I don't know what we're giving time to because he's nearly 40. Of a journeyman, he's a journeyman again. Antonina never happened because we were talking about him potentially fighting Anthony Joshua. Yeah. Give him Usyk. I want to see how it pans out. I give Usyk 2 rounds and then Wilder will give him the bomb. Absolutely not. He wouldn't get near Usyk. The power didn't look the same. Without that, he's got nothing. I love Wilder. Yeah. I think it should be called a day. Brilliant career. Brilliant career is a stretch. That doesn't need to end badly. He won his world champion. Connor, I'm really trying to.
No. Let's not talk about the rest. It's still a brilliant career. The guy's had over 50 fights. He's made his money. He started very late as well. He just wanted to make money for his kid. Like, world champion. He's got some record. It's a brilliant career. If we go into who he's fought and everything, he's not a legend, but give him to Chisora, Del Boy would flatten him 100%. 1,000 times. Yeah, like it's not even competitive. That's the level.
Derek Chisora, what? Derek Chisora would be. I think David Allen would beat Wilder.
I think David Allen would hurt Wilder. I think
David Allen was offered that fight, and I think he's looking at that now and going, "Do you know what?
That actually makes sense for Wilder to take that. It makes him money." And Dave Allen doesn't hit as hard as AJ, but I promise you, Dave Allen knocks him out, and I promise you, it's like hard to watch. That's the level.
We're talking about someone said Joe Joyce, Jared Anderson as potential opponents. For
Jared Anderson makes sense because Anderson's got next to no power for a heavyweight.
Yeah,
in comparison, but then Anderson will outbox him, and I think would finish him as well.
Yeah,
Wilder's not got the greatest chin. He's he's overperformed in his career. I got a lot of respect for him because I think genuinely the fact he's going to walk away like a multi-millionaire. He's part of one of the greatest heavyweight trilogies of all time in terms of the fight qualities. He's he's a world champion. He's got a bronze medal, Olympic medal. Like, I've got a lot of respect for him, a lot of time for him as well. He seems like a good guy, but he has overperformed horrendously. And we're now in an era where you can't really get away with not fighting the best if you're claiming to be the best. And that doesn't really suit him because he isn't good enough, simply put. Yeah, Dave Allen's a long day from. Like, I really don't know what's next for him. I think the best option is to retire. The second best option is Dave Allen, but Dave Allen hurts him, so probably Jared Anderson makes more sense. I don't know about you. I didn't care on Friday anymore. I don't care about Deontay Wilder fights. We know what it is. And the knockouts don't come anymore. So
he is. Do you know what? As well, watching Wilder, walking forward like a zombie, trying to like jab, and I just think anyone with a bit of speed would absolutely flatten him. I don't even think you could put him in there with Moses Atama. No, not a chance.
Moses would kill him. That's the thing. Is right. Is I've got in my head the only way he beats AJ is if suddenly that right hand comes back from the grave and actually does land.
Even the right hand he throws at about a mile an hour.
Exactly, he doesn't have it anymore. But what I'm saying is that gives him a little chance against AJ. Against Moses is too quick and hungry. Like Moses doesn't land on him. Usyk is the hilarious one because I kind of wish we could go back in time and actually have Usyk and Wilder fight because there was a good period of time where people wanted that, and I think that would have been hilarious. But look, Wilder is technically back. It was rubbish. The promotion was terrible. That's a really good comment. In my opinion, Fury and Wilder have both never been the same since that trilogy, 100%. Wilder was never an elite boxer, but he had elite power and heart. Doesn't have that anymore. Time to call it a day. Exactly. But he doesn't. He's not going to, is he? That's the worry. Fury, I think, took the spite out of him and probably made him too much money. You got to remember, Wilder was a heavyweight champion for 10 plus fights before Fury, and yet never really sold.
Who did he fight?
No. Yeah, I know, but I know, but that's what I mean. He was a heavyweight world champ in, like, basically when AJ had to revive the division.
Do you remember Ortiz taking him to heavy water? Ortiz is like 50.
Yeah, there was a lot of fights where Wilder got taken to a lot heavier water.
Who did he fight that a lot of others fought? Dominic Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil. We fought Takam.
Other than that, and Fury. Other than that,
that's when you start getting to the.
He got beaten by Zhang. Got beaten by Fury.
Look, his record's not impressive. That's why he didn't sell. But I think that's why when he fought Fury, that's why it started going downhill. You've got Stavern, Chris Arreola.
Stavern might be the worst heavyweight champion.
Oh, Charles Martin's got to be up there.
Stavern might be the worst heavyweight champion, by the way. Charles Martin walks his earth like a god. Do you remember when he said that?
Yeah.
And then got flattened by Anthony Joshua. It's crazy. He won his title. Actually, yeah. Charles Martin won his title off of an injury.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain. Charles Martin is pretty much dead set to being the worst. And Anderson couldn't deal with him. But heavyweights right now is in a really weird position. Wilder's resume is shit, but he's made the most of it.
We're seeing the most active heavyweight division at the moment with competitive fights for a while that I've seen. And in my opinion, Wilder doesn't even go into my top 10 now in terms of where I put him. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
It's like you could talk about Atama, you could talk about Wardley, you could talk about British. You could talk. Michael Hunter's still there. People forget about Michael Hunter, and he's not. He's still about, but I don't know where I put him, but he's still about. You've got Bacoli there. You've got Joshua still. You've got Usyk. You've got Dubois. The list goes on, but none of these fighters, for me, Wilder beats.
No, it doesn't.
I don't think Wilder beats David Adelaide.
David Adelaide would kill him. This is the genuine. Anyone that's got a bit of power and can land will really hurt Wilder. Jared Herby said, yo.
Hang on.
Better not be Jared Anderson because I've insulted him. And that'd be really awkward. But
Jared Anderson needs to get back to winning ways. I'll be brutally honest with you.
But he just needs to fight more. He's not active enough. That's the main issue. But
he, again, but this is what I'm saying to you. There's a lot of fighters in there. Jared Anderson's young enough to make the adjustments, I think, to be able to. So, it's not. He's got to figure out what works for him, but he's still young. Wilder don't have time on his hands.
No.
Wilder got beaten by the older man in Zhilei Zhang.
Yeah, and that's because Zhang knows what he's doing with his body weight. I don't rate Zhang like he's not going to be a world champion. But if Zhang is fit, the first sort of 5 or 6 rounds, the first half of the fight, Zhang knows what he's doing. It's when you take him later in rounds that Zhang's kind of inept. That's when he loses his ability. But like, this is the thing. We're talking about a lot of fighters. Like Ajit Kabayel can actually just knock you out. Like he could do anything over 12 rounds. AJ on his day, we don't really know where we're at with AJ, but on his day, AJ will just knock anybody out. Fury can outbox anyone. Usyk will outbox anyone. Dubois can knock anyone out. We're talking about fighters that have like elite attributes, but multiple attributes. Wilder has one attribute, and he seems to have lost it. Even Herdon, if he believed in himself, he could have won that. Wilder wobbled every time and gone through back. Watch the first knockdown, they both landed hooks. Wilder's legs looked wobbled. Yeah, he was. Like, this is the thing. Herdon, that was cherry picked for Wilder to win with ease, and I just don't think he did. I think Herdon just basically came for a little paycheck and fucked off at the end of it. But that's all that was. Like, I'm unimpressed, and if for Wilder's sake, I think he's a nice guy. I think he's a good bloke. I hope he retires.
I think
literally can't think of a fight that's safe.
Good to mention why he actually started boxing.
Yeah.
In that sense, he's achieved what he needed to achieve, and it was to pay for treatment for his daughter.
Yeah, exactly.
So, in that sense, a massive respect, because a man, you can only respect a man who does what he does for his family to earn money in it. I think at one point he probably got lost in the sauce of the boxing. It started becoming this big loudmouth, in my opinion. But the problem is when you become that person, you open yourself up to criticism. Do you get it? So as much as he's done good, you have to accept that you're going to get bad feedback or negativity towards you because you've kind of asked for it. If you're going around saying that you're going to put people in hospital, kill people, and then you're crying about it afterwards, it's just so. Yeah, I think it's time for him to retire. That's pretty much what I've got to say on it. To be honest, I don't even want to watch Anthony Joshua of Wilder.
No, God no. We're talking about like someone that I'm genuinely over him losing more. I've become a bit of a fan of Wilder, not really as a boxer, but as just a human.
Yeah,
I don't want to see him brutally knocked out. If he gets in there with AJ, Allen, Adelaide, Atalma, anyone really, that's the only way it's going to go. And Jared Anderson finishes him. But I think Jared Anderson's the safest fight because I don't rate Anderson's power as massively high. But look, that's kind of a recap on all the fights. We will be doing more actually live watch-alongs. We just had a bit of an issue. We're probably going to do Harlem Eubank versus Jack Catterall next week because that's a UK one, which is always easier to do anyway. And that's quite a good fight card, so we'll likely return for that. However, if you want a bit more of a breakdown and sort of the aftermath alongside everything else going on the week, join us on Thursday, 7:45, 7:30. It does sometimes change, but we'll announce it before, so you'll know. Join us then, and we'll be talking about everything in a bit more detail as well. And by then, we'll have a bit of an answer as to what Wilder's going to do, what Jake Paul's going to do. Don't know if we'll speak about Jake Paul that much, but whatever. Zurdo, more
yeah, we've done that. We got Jake Paul out of the way.
Yeah, so probably not, but maybe. Right. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Still got the £50 giveaway, so make sure you are subscribed. Like and comment. Is Jake Paul actually a good boxer, or is he dog shit? Cool.
Dog shit.
Dog shit. That's 2 dog shits already. Perfect.